Well, hello everyone. It's Karen McDermott Rolfe, independent advisor with Creative Memories, and I am back with my monthly technique layout and challenge. I'm going to share a scrapbooking technique with you and then challenge all of you to use the technique to create your own layout. Take a photo of your layout and share it with me in my Facebook group at Karen's Croppers for an entry into my March door prize drawing. If you like my layouts, you can see more at karencrops.com. And I so appreciate all of your purchases that you make with me through Creative Memories at creativememories.com/user/Karen, and it's Karen with a Y. And I offer a generous customer rewards program. And also, right now, Creative Memories is offering free shipping. It's one of our favorite promotions whenever they offer free shipping. So, with purchases of $80 or more in US dollars, you can get free shipping. Now, for those of you in Canada and Australia, that number is a little bit different. So, check that out. But free shipping ends at noon Central Time on Friday, March 8th. Okay, that's noon Central Time on March 8th. So you have a few more days to place those orders to get free shipping. So I'm going to show you today a layout using the Something Blue collection and give you a peek at that collection. So this might be something that you'd like to add to your shopping cart for free shipping. Also, I shared a video yesterday with a peek of the National Scrapbook Day materials. And I also talked about my own virtual National Scrapbook Day event and my exclusive layouts that I'm creating with the NSD customer bundle. So please review that video for info about National Scrapbook Day, info about how you can get access to my exclusive layouts and register for my virtual event. You can also find registration information about my virtual National Scrapbook Day at my blog at karencrops.com. Look at the menu bar at the top, or also in my Facebook group at Karen's Croppers. So I really hope that you can join me for that event on April 20th. Everything will be recorded, though, if you can't be live with me on Zoom on the 20th, okay? So let's take a look here at the Something Blue collection that I'm going to use today for my layout. I don't have my layout completed. I'm going to complete it here on video for you, so I don't have it to show you. But you guys, it is going to be super pretty. You know, I love to make pretty pages, and this is a really pretty one. When I saw the Something Blue collection, boy, it really caught my eye. And even though I don't have any wedding photos, this is our new wedding collection for Creative Memories. So even though I don't have any wedding photos, I knew that I'd find ways to use this materials because it's so pretty. It's in the ever popular color combo of blues and greens. Blue here is the wedding color of the year. You're going to see a lot of blues in wedding materials this year, so Creative Memories is kind of right on trend with that. But as you see, I'm going to show you these papers. These prints are really versatile, and you're going to be able to use them for lots of layouts other than wedding, okay? So you're going to get 12 sheets. You're going to get 2 sheets of each. We have a sheet here. It's monochromatic. It's light blue with a darker blue, and it says love, love, love. So we can use that for lots of layouts, right? It doesn't need to be wedding. On the back is this really cute little print with gray and white. So this print here with little vines, and there looks like little hearts going across. That's really, really a gorgeous sheet of paper in that tone of gray. The back sheet is white with a little blue print, really neutral. Easy to use prints. I think these prints are going to be really easy to use. Beautiful monochromatic green with leaves and vines. The back, some green stripes. I really like this shade of green, really pretty. Here we have a darker shade of green, a little kind of bit of a blue green. As you can see, there's blue in this color green, is what I'm saying. And then we have some stripes. Love pairing the stripes with florals. We have this beautiful, beautiful print here. I think this is my favorite sheet in the pack. This floral with blue background. There's a little bit of distressing in the blue, and you probably can't see it on screen, but a little bit of distressing on that blue background, so it kind of makes it look like blue linen, maybe, with the pretty little sprigs of flowers. On the back, just a really neutral, versatile little blue print. We have here tell if this is, I think this is light blue. At first look, I thought it was gray, but I think it's really light blue background. Again, it's got some distressing to it, so it looks a little bit like maybe linen with the white dots. Really pretty. And another really pretty sheet of paper here. I love florals. In addition to scrapbooking, I love gardening and I love flowers. And you know, flowers are something that really attract me. So this is, again, a very sweet print here. And there's 2 sheets of each of those papers that I just showed. Now I've opened up the embellishments here and I laid them out because, again, we're thinking it's a wedding collection. If I don't have wedding photos, how am I going to use this? Well, I think you're going to be able to use almost all of these embellishments for things other than wedding photos. So we have a lot of florals and leaves, just some neutral kind of little heart things. And then we have some titles that I think can be used for lots of layouts. Love, you were always the one, happily ever after, love is in the air, love, love, it was love at first sight, will you be my something blue? So I think these are going to be, you know, great photos or great embellishments, great titles to use, you know, with layouts of your family, right? And your loved ones. There's this really nice church piece. Again, we could use that for all types of things besides weddings, right? There's baptisms. There's other significant moments in our lives that happen in the church community, right? And so I know you'll find a use for that pretty country church there. Really pretty. But there's a few more pieces here that are real versatile too, that are just some open little pieces, again, for journaling. And then there are a few that are very specific to weddings. So if you are doing a wedding album and you need wedding, you are going to get wedding. So we have Our Wedding Day. We have this cute little banner that says Just Married. There's also the 2 banner pieces down here that are just neutral with nothing on them. There's one that says I do, and then there's a wedding cake. Okay. So really, really beautiful. The stickers are a little bit maybe more wedding specific than the embellishments, but still, as I look in these, I know that I'm going to be able to use them for other things. You know, there's balloons, there's flowers, there's cameras, there's hearts, love. I can use that for lots of things. You know, champagne bottle, champagne glasses. I could use that for other things. This little car's super cute. It says Just Married. My true love, best day ever, presents, you know, there are wedding rings and bells and rings, a little bit more wedding specific. And then again, a mix of titles that are going to be great for wedding specific. We're talking about the proposal, the honeymoon, newlyweds, wedding party, reception. But then also there's you know, sticker titles here that can be used for other things. Picture Perfect, Love Story, Love and Happiness, Forever with You. So I think I'm going to be able to use a good number of these for layouts other than wedding. And then we have some more beautiful border stickers and some larger flower and heart stickers. And then there is a matte pack. I haven't opened up the matte pack. But we know that the mats are double-sided. So again, if there's a title or icon that's too specific to wedding, you could use the backside. And I should stop because I'm really promoting this to be used for non-wedding, because that's what I need it for. But for all of you who need a wedding collection, this is going to be wonderfully beautiful, you guys. There is plenty of wedding specific items in here that is going to be beautiful for your wedding layouts, okay? And then there's something new here. We have these little stitched embellishments. This is something brand new to Creative Memories. So these are like a stitch with stitched thread. Really pretty. They're very unique. They add a little dimension, a whole different element to our layouts. When you look at the packaging, it does tell us that they are acid-free and lignin-free. So, you know, they're photo-safe in that regard. But Creative Memories did not put photo-safe on the packaging, because there is a chance that if these embellishments would get wet, the dye from the thread might bleed and would bleed on your layout, okay? Now, I personally don't see, you know, that's going to be happening for me because, you know, I'm going to immediately, when I get my layouts done, I'm going to cover them with the page protector and be protected. So, you know, hopefully my layout would not get wet and I wouldn't have to worry about these bleeding. So otherwise, I think these are going to be really pretty safe to use in my albums. Of course, they would also make beautiful cards also. Okay, so that's a peek here at the Something Blue collection that I'm going to be using for my layout now. So as I mentioned, I don't have the layout ready to show you. We are going to create it together. So I've already started here to do a background, and I used here for my frame a sheet of our old shimmer cardstock white. Our older shimmer cardstock was heavier. It's very stiff. You know, it's stiff like cardstock, even maybe a little bit stiffer than the cardstock. And I used that for a narrow frame, and then I cut the blue paper to 11.5 by 11.5 and adhered that on. So, you know, by making the frame, I cut out the center to conserve that paper, and then I have my background ready to go. I'm going to be using the Spring Leaves frame punch. Now this was just brand new, came out this month, or at the end of February, I should say. And what I want to do first is to give you a demo of the different ways that you can use our frame punches. They are unique. The frame punches are unique in that they can punch in a square shape all around, or a rectangular shape. But you could also use them to punch borders, like our normal, you know, not our normal, but our border punches. We also have border punches that just punch a border. So the frame punch will also punch a border and a frame. And I'm going to show you a third way to use this punch on my layout, okay? So I'm excited to show you this other way. I've shown it in the past. I think it's been a couple years ago since I've had a video on using it in this way. And certainly the way that I'm going to use it on my layout is unique and something different that I haven't done before, but it's so pretty, I can't wait for you to see it. But first, let's give a little demo here of the frame punch for those of you who are not quite familiar with our frame punch. So as the name implies, it's going to punch a frame. Now before I'm using my punch, I did punch it numerous times on scrap paper to remove the oil residue from the manufacturing process, okay? So you want to do that with all of your punches and your Border Maker cartridges. Punch them on scrap paper to remove that oily residue, okay? And now you know that when you use our border punches, you usually insert, so you line your paper up at one of the black lines here on the front of the punch. Now to do a frame, it's different. Instead, you're going to be looking at the silver line here on the tray. There's silver lines on each side, and that's where you're going to line up and start your first punch, okay? So, and then you're going to want to use paper that's going to be in even increments. So you could do 12 by 12, 10 by 10, 8 by 8, 6 by 6, 4 by 4, or you could do something like 12 by 10, 10 by 8, 8 by 6. So you see those even increments, and you'll get different shapes of frames. So I'm just using a 12 by 12 inch sheet of white cardstock here. I'm going to line it up so that the top of my cardstock is on that silver line there on the tray, and I'm going to make my first punch. I'm going to pull it through, and now I'm going to do some pattern matching. I'm going to match the pattern that I punched with the pattern that's imprinted on the tray. And then I'm going to continue doing that, pulling it through and pattern matching. Now I don't want to go all the way to the end. I want to stop right here where I'm going to have the little tab, okay? And I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to line up that little tab on that silver line again. So that tab is on the silver line, and that is how I'm going to get that nice corner. I'm continuing the pattern matching all the way around. I'm stopping before the end, turning it, and lining up that little tab piece there with the silver line. And one last time. So, you know, you'll get lots of use as a frame punch because you can use it in all of those different sizes that I had mentioned earlier. And you get this beautiful frame. Then you can layer that. Oh, let me get a piece of the darker paper here, and you'll see how pretty that leaf pattern. Doesn't that really pop? That just pops on that darker green paper. So it's really beautiful. And then also, you know, if you punched it, depending on, you know, if you punched this out of a print paper, your little debris pieces are going to be printed too, and you'll have a backside, right? You could turn it on the backside and fill in these little leaf debris into the open spaces if you want to get another color on there. So see, I would take my Precision Point glue pen or the repositional tape runner and fill in those spots if I like with a different color paper. So it'd be another way to use that. Okay. Now I mentioned that it can be used to still punch borders. So let's do that. Now if I want to punch a border with a frame punch, don't do the silver line. Instead, you're going to use the black line, just like we do with our border punches. So I'm going to start it right there on the black line, pull it through, match those patterns, and punch. And this is kind of it gives you an edge style, and you can see there I was punching kind of quickly and I didn't have it lined up so great, so I have these little stragglers I'm just going to pluck off there. But then you can also use it as a border piece. So really lovely. Okay. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to use it to punch a frame on the inside of a square piece. Now to do this technique, you are going to need a square. And the smallest that you can go is 6 by 6. Okay, so you could do 6 by 6, 8 by 8, 10 by 10, or 12 by 12 for this technique. But I'm going to be using a 6-inch by 6-inch square, and this is the light blue dotted paper. It's got light blue with the little dots, and it's 6 inches by 6 inches. What I want to do is I need to cut out a hollow piece out of it because I want this frame, I don't want it to punch on the outside edge. I want it to punch on an inside edge. And let me just show you what I mean by that. I want to end up with a piece that's going to look like this. See how beautiful that is? We have the inside punched out. Okay, so that means we first need to cut out the center of our square. So by using the 6-inch by 6-inch piece, we are going to need to leave a 1.5-inch frame. So I'm going to place the edge of my paper on the 1.5-inch mark. I'm going to use the right side of the trimmer here since I'm right-handed, of the right side of the ruler here, and I'm placing my edge at 1.5 inches. Now I want the blade to start cutting at 1.5 inches, and we know there's an inch differential between that white line where the blade cuts. The blade cuts right there at that white line, and there's an inch of a difference between the bottom of the housing unit. So when I close the arm on my printer, or my trimmer, I'm looking at the ruler right here on the arm, but it's covered up by the housing unit for the blade, so I can't really see that ruler really well to see exactly where the white line is. Since I want a 1.5-inch frame, I want to start cutting a 1.5 inches down from the top. So what I'm going to do is use that 1-inch differential there. So instead of placing the white line, you know, 1.5 inches, which I can't really see here on the ruler, I can place this bottom right edge of the housing unit at 2.5. And then that way I know that the blade is at 1.5. So that bottom right corner is at 2.5 inches, meaning that the blade is at 1.5. I'm going to press and cut, and I'm going to cut down until that bottom right corner is at 5.5 inches on the ruler on the trimmer arm. And I'm going to stop when that bottom right edge is at 5.5. That means the blade stopped at 4.5 and that I have a 1.5 inches from the edge of the paper. I'm going to turn it and do the same thing, lining it up at 1.5 inches. I'm going to position the bottom right corner of the blade housing unit at 2.5 inches. Press and cut until 5.5. Turn it, line it up at 1.5 inches. Place this bottom right edge at 2.5 and press and cut until 5.5. Turn it one last time, lining the edge of the paper with the 1.5 inches on the ruler. putting that bottom right corner of the blade housing unit at 2.5, pressing and cutting until 5.5. And now I've cut out the center of my square, and I have an 1.5-inch frame all the way around. Okay. Now when you do this, you want to be as precise as possible. Be precise as possible when cutting your 6-inch by 6-inch piece. Be precise as possible when cutting out that hollow frame. And when you fold it in half like this, be precise as you can of lining it up. So we're going to fold it in half there, kind of at the diagonal, okay? And now I'm going to turn it, and I like to look at it like this, so it's like in an L shape. And I'm going to hold my spring leaves frame punch upside down. And I'm going to be looking here at the metal pattern. And I'm going to place my little L right in here. And we have to think now, I don't want an outside edge, I want an inside edge. So that means I want to punch on the inside edge of my L piece. So I want to punch on these short sides. So turning it upside down again, I'm going to put it in. And I do not want to press the paper as far to the right as it will go, because I want it to punch right on that inside edge. So that means I need to position the paper so that metal frame is right near that inside edge, because that is where I want the pattern. And then it's going a little bit there on the diagonal. I'm pressing partially to kind of lock it in place, turning it upside down to press, and then all the debris will fall out. Make sure to do that so your punch does not jam up. You know, these little debris pieces, it could fall back into the punch and could jam on you. So now when we pull it out, it looks like this. We're going to turn it on its side, and we're going to do the same thing with this edge. And again, we're looking now more at the bottom of the metal on the punch. And again, we want to punch that inside edge. So I have it positioned like this, so the edge, shake it out. And now we have pieces like this. Now we're going to open it up and we're going to refold it in the opposite direction. Now, again, be as precise as you can be, lining up these corners and the edges of the paper. And what you're going to notice is that it does not line up perfectly. And what I mean by that is that the punch patterns are not going to overlap each other perfectly, and you're going to see these little tab kind of pieces. That is happening because this is not a symmetrical pattern. If this pattern were symmetrical, the patterns would line up perfectly when you folded them on top of each other, but it's not. See, we have the big leaf over here, and then it has a little smaller leaf, and so it's not a uniform shape. Okay, so you can think of our other frame punches that we have that are, or you know what, you could also use this technique with our border punches. Okay, so you could look at border punches too that have a more symmetrical pattern. So what I'm going to suggest to you is that you play around with scrap paper, with your frame punches, with your border punches, and see which patterns that you have that you like, that you're going to get some pretty little piece like this. Okay. So I've refolded it now. It's on top of each other. And again, we have to think of where we want to be cutting. We want to cut on this inside edge, right? We have our L, and we're still punching there on the inside edge. So again, we're going to line it up. I'm going to put this piece in, and I'm going to be looking here at the place where it last punched. See that little hole? So I'm going to kind of look at the little hole a little bit. But more importantly, what I'm looking at is where the edge of the metal lines up with the paper. I don't want to be here. See that where it's overlapping? I want it to be on that print. Okay, does that make sense? You see where it did not line up perfectly when we folded it? I don't want to I don't want to measure it by that piece. I'm looking at that dotted paper, and I'm making sure that the metal there has a little bit of that paper all around it to punch it. Okay, and I am still going to get this little tab, and we're going to have to cut that off with our scissors. So I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do the same thing of watching right here at this spot. And you're going to notice here, see, if I lined it up just like this, it's not lined up, it's not covering my paper. I want my paper to be totally covered by the metal portion of the die, okay? So I had to pull it back a little bit. So there at the bottom, the metal is all surrounded by that blue paper. It's right on the edge, and I'm going to punch. And I think, you know, if you practice on some scrap paper, you're going to see this when you're using this punch. Now, when I open it up, we can see we have this beautiful little frame all around. And then we have these kind of little weird tab things. So I'm just going to take my microtip scissors and kind of just cut those off and kind of follow the pattern there. Kind of make a little circular kind of shape. There's a lot of little curves there, and so there, when I cut that off, you don't even notice that it was there. And then again, kind of following the shape, kind of just do a little scallop, kind of little scallop cuts, and you won't even notice it. Okay. So you're going to do that with another piece of 6x6 paper, the same. So you'll have two pieces of this. And then you're going to repeat it again with another piece of paper. Now for my third piece, I used our current white shimmer cardstock. Our current white shimmer cardstock is very thin. It's very thin, just like our designer paper. Don't use our old shimmer paper that's really thick, okay? Because remember, you have to fold it and punch through 2 layers with an intricate punch. So this method will not work with cardstock or any kind of thicker paper. It will jam up your punch, okay? So use thin paper to do this. So use the designer paper or our thin current shimmer papers. And this is our current white shimmer. And so I'd punch the same frame, and then I cut it just in half on the diagonal. So I get these 2 pieces like this. Okay, you guys with me? Now let's look at how this is going to come together, and look how pretty this is. I wanted to do something a little different, and I wanted to arrange these kind of on the diagonal again. And it's going to overlap my layout, and I'm going to have to cut off some overhang. And what I want to do is I want to lay out my pieces first before I start adhering, just to get my spacing right. And we're going to see. I think I'm going to tape it this way. I turned it upside down because I had the crease there from where that paper was folded, and I think it'll lay down flatter for me. So I think I'm looking at these white pieces, and I want trying to get those kind of an equal distance between the sides of the layout, but I do want them to be butted up next to the frames. So I have the white pieces, so they're about, you might have to come up a little bit, move those a little bit, because I need a little bit more there. Okay, so I think this is about how I'm going to adhere it. Isn't that pretty? So you see what I mean when I was talking about it being such a pretty layout. Now I needed to refill my tape, and I didn't do that because I wanted to show you something here. So I pulled out my empty cartridge, and I'm looking at the inside here of my tape runner case. Do you see that purple little residue all bunched up? That is the repositional tape, and I want to clean that out. And you can end up with a big bunch right there, and that will impact how well that your tape runner rolls and it comes out. So I'm kind of cleaning out those spots. And then the same with the cover. There's a little bit of this residue right here. You can see it real clearly in person. And then I'm also going to check my tape runner apparatus itself and making sure that it's not broken. See, there's a little tab right there, and then there's some little tab pieces right here. And that helps to hold the tape refill cartridge in place and for it to function properly. Sometimes with use, and it will happen, you know, with lots of repeated use, these will break, and that would be the time to replace your whole tape runner. And now I'm just going to insert the repositional tape cartridge right in there and put it back together, and I'm ready to roll, right? Now you're definitely going to want to use the repositional tape with this because it's so intricate. And we have all these intricate frame pieces to adhere. So that got moved on me a little bit. So I'm just kind of double checking again. Because I really don't want to have to pull it up. I really want to get it adhered pretty correctly the first time. So I'm going to adhere the white pieces first. And so I'm just going to kind of load this up with the repositional tape. I'm just trying to go around some of those cutout pieces. I want to get the corners really good. And I did notice that I hit the layout with my finger, so everything moved a little bit on me. Now the one thing about this repositional tape, it is really sticky. So when I start to put it down, you'll see how it just starts to cling right on. And I'm just trying to kind of finely position this so it's straight and it's about where I want it. What I'm trying to do is have it at an equal distance from the top of the layout and the side of the layout. I want it to be on there straight. So I'm just going to lightly kind of tap it there to hold it in place. And now I think I'm going to do the frame pieces. So again, I need to load those up fairly well, going around the pattern. This repositional tape runner adhesive of ours, it comes out in clear little dots, so it's invisible. And so that's why you can run right over these intricate punched parts and not worry about it. And then when I place it on the layout, when I'm done, you'll see I'm going to rub all over the layout and pick up any of the repositional little residue of these little dots. Otherwise, with different adhesive that comes out like in solid white strips, you can see how difficult that would be. And I think it'd be kind of difficult using a glue pen also. So now I'm going to kind of match that up. I'm looking at the angle I have there on the white piece. I know that it's going to overlap there on the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to have my second piece. So I'm just going to kind of lightly kind of place it, and now I'm going to do my second piece. Now I'm only lightly tapping it just in case I do need to move it a smidge. It'll be much easier to pull up if I hadn't gone over it and rubbed it down really really hard so that it's, you know, that it's adhered really tight. And now I'm taking my second frame. Again, I'm looking at the angle there on the white piece. I'm also looking at the spacing between the first frame, because I want a little bit of a gap, maybe about 1/8 of an inch or so between those pieces. So you can see how I lifted that up, being repositional. I think it's doing pretty good. Now I'm going to do my last piece. Again, I'm going to place it here. Kind of eyeballing it to line it up. And again, trying to keep it an equal distance between the side and the bottom. I didn't quite get it in equal distance there. I think there's a little bit more space on the side. So see now with that repositional tape how easily I could pull that up and pull it over a little bit. That's looking better. That's looking better. So I like the placement of all these pieces. So now I'm just going to go over it and press it down to adhere it. And then as I'm pressing, if there's any of that repositional residue, you'll notice it as shiny little white dots coming through the punch pattern. I'm just rubbing it out to pick it up. It's going to just kind of ball up. And then I just brush it off. It looked like, oops, looks like the piece was puckered there. Now when I was rubbing it, I caught a little piece of the pattern. So let me, and I can see places where I didn't maybe get any adhesive and I want it to lay flatter. So I'm just kind of pulling it up a little bit, adding a little bit more adhesive to some areas. Making sure my corners and edges are adhered well. It looks like right here, this corner, it needs a little bit more, so I'm going to just use my repositional, or my multi-purpose tool there to pull that up. Sometimes when you pull it up with your fingers, you might bend the paper, so just by using that multi-purpose tool under it, I pried it up. I was able to put a little bit more tape there. And now I'm going to take my microtip scissors and I'm just going to cut off this overhang, turn it upside down, cut the tips off, cut the tips. Now let's see what we have here. Isn't that beautiful? I think that's so pretty. And what pretty paper to use this with. So when you cut out your hollow frames from these 6 by 6 inch pieces, you're going to get some little squares left over. So these were the squares that we had cut out initially. And so now I have some photos cropped down to fit on those. Now the photos are going to be positioned in a diamond shape, and that's going to be something a little different for us. So be careful when you crop your photos. So I have my second photo ready to crop, a photo of my granddaughters here. And I have a little template that I made. So now this template is 2 3/4 by 2 3/4, okay? 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And then I'm going to position it on the diagonal as a diamond. And I'm going to hold it over my photo here to see where I want to crop the photo. So I know their heads are there. I just want to kind of make sure I get their heads. It's going to go right to the edges here, the 4-inch mark on my photo, and it's going to come down like this. Now I found it easier myself just to kind of position it and then use my personal trimmer to crop it. You might use the photo labeling pencil from Creative Memories. That's our black waxy pencil, and you can make some marks right on your photo of where to cut it if you like. I was finding that I couldn't be totally precise with that pencil, with the photo labeling pencil, so I thought I was a little bit more precise just by making this template and layering it over my photo. So now you can see how I've placed the photo with the template right there into my personal trimmer, and I've cut along one line. And I'm being careful not to move that photo too much, or the template, I mean. And I'm going to cut all the way around. And this is how I cut my photos into that kind of diamond shape. Maybe go back up. Whoops. I'll use the top edge there so I know my cut is straight. So let's see how this turned out. Pretty good. Okay, that worked. You're definitely going to have to look for photos that you're going to be able to cut into this shape. we're going to adhere the photo onto the mats that we have. So this was a great way to, use those leftover little squares that we got. And we are going to have to just trim them down just a smidge here on one side. I just need to just kind of shave that off a little bit. There we go. So now that's matted perfectly. And that photo is ready to go into its spot right here. Okay. And now to embellish it, I pulled out some of the something blue embellishments. I pulled out some of the leaf and flower pieces, and I did get a title, Better Together. So I thought maybe I could use the title down there. Do a little layering. I'm going to definitely adhere these with foam squares. And on that Better Together, there's some interlocking hearts right there. I don't think I necessarily want those interlocking hearts, so there are some little epoxy embellishments in the embellishment pack. So I was going to use one of these heart pieces, and then that would cover that up right there. Okay. Whoops. So you see how I kind of just layered everything, have it in place. And I'm going to put, whoop. I'm wanting it to cover up those. It's still coming through a little bit, but I think it's okay. See, I'm going to put a little bit of tape here on the stem to get that in the spot, and then I'm going to use foam squares. So I'm almost done. This layout might take just a little bit more time than some of the layouts that I share here for these technique videos. I just wanted to do something a little bit different this time, something a little bit more intricate. When I try to come up with the technique layouts, typically I like to do ones that maybe that maybe are not quite as labor intensive as this one. I don't think it's really labor intensive, but there's just a few steps. And of course this video is long because I gave you the product overview there at the beginning. But definitely, practice punching these pieces with some scrap paper before you make your before you do it on your good paper. Practice and be precise with your cutting. Be precise when you cut the 6" by 6" pieces. Be precise when you cut out the hollow squares out of the middle. And that'll help you when you fold it. Then it's going to fold and line up better. And so if it's lined up better, once you fold that means your punches are going to line up better. As you'll notice, if they're not, the punches just won't meet as well. It might cut off some of the pattern when you punch. Typically, I don't do photos in this orientation, so it's kind of nice, again, to have a layout that's a little bit different than what I normally do. And there we go. So isn't that pretty, you guys? So you can see here how I layered the embellishments. My favorite sheet of paper from this pack was this pretty blueprint, so I feel like there's still enough of that blueprint coming through that I can see it really well. I love how I've accented the mats with the white pieces to make this kind of another kind of faux frame as a background for my photo mats. I love how it's going diagonal. The diagonal gives it a little bit of just something a little bit different, a little fresh view. So I cannot wait to see what you do with this. Again, this technique will work with frame punches and border punches, okay? And if you go and you look through my YouTube channel, you'll find a video from maybe 2 years ago that I did using the mandala frame punch or border punch, using this technique of cutting a small little frame. So you could take a look at that video too for another example of how it looks using a different punch. So please use this technique to create your layout and share a photo with me in Karen's Croppers in the technique album number 56. You guys, that means there's 56 technique albums there, 56 scrapbooking techniques saved for you to do. So a great reference library there in Karen's Croppers on Facebook. Thanks so much for visiting with me. I hope that you enjoy this layout and I hope you give it a try. I think it would also look very pretty adapted as a double page layout, and I just know that some of you will do that and it's going to look lovely. You might also experiment with your pieces, your frame pieces. Instead of arranging them this way, maybe you'll arrange them just kind of as a border at the top, and then you could get more photos on the layout. You could still have the two photos up the top, and then you'd have space for some photos on the bottom. So that could be a way to adapt it to get a few more photos on the layout if you like. All right, everybody, I just can't wait to see what you do with this. Thanks again. Bye-bye.